Good evening and welcome to Friday Night Live. All the way from Ontario, Canada, please welcome our special guest, MacKenzie King. Please have a seat. Well, first of all, congratulations. This is the third time that you've been running as Prime Minister. How do you feel? Wow, so you must have gained a lot of life experience through helping Canada go through our independence. Oh, really? I didn't know you were part of the King Byng crisis. Well, do you think that the King Byng crisis had a huge effect on Canadians? Well, yeah, it allowed us to gain independence to be where we are now. That's why we invited you here, didn't we? Without you, we wouldn't have independence. Well, right now, we have some questions from some viewers, so let's see who's calling in right now. Hello, you're on air right now. This is Friday Night Live. Would you like to ask a question to our Prime Minister?
My goodness, I can't believe I'm talking to you right now, sir. How are you? Excellent, thanks for asking. I'm so surprised that you guys actually picked up. Well, I gotta ask, how do you plan on further developing Canada's independence?
So will this completely change Canada forever? Alright, thank you. Well, here's another caller. Hello?
Hello? Is this Jopreet? Am I really on this show? Are you serious? Wow, okay. So here's my question. Well, we all know that this is your third time being Prime Minister of Canada, but what's the difference going to be this time?
Well, the caller was just asking whether you think it's going to be the same this time, since it is your third time being Prime Minister. Well, we know that you're including new acts that are being undergone right now, but I think that we're having another conscription crisis. Will it be the same as 1917, or is there going to even be a conscription crisis? Well, from what you're saying, I'm assuming that you think that it's not necessarily conscription, but conscription if necessary. Alright, so if you're saying that if we run out of choices, we will have a conscription. Alright, well, thank you for your call. Here's a question from another caller.
Hi, Mr. King. Can you explain how you handled the conscription crisis during the Second World War?
That is a great question and answer. Like you said, conscription was a major obstacle to climb. You promised the French Canadians in 1940 not to enforce overseas conscription. However, you adopted the National Resources Mobilization Act, which allowed the government to register citizens to wartime jobs within Canada. But the tension began to rise between the French Canadians and the English Canadians, and when it became obvious that the people weren't to decide, so in 1942, you held a poll deciding on whether to enforce conscription or not, and it was overwhelmingly rejected by the French Canadians. But in the end, it passed due to English Canadian support. Now let's continue to our next caller. So just to be clear, you said that you were faced with many challenges while deciding whether conscription should or should not be mandatory, and you said that Canada doesn't have a significant amount of soldiers that you pledge to the people of Quebec, and you will limit Canada's direct involvement within the war. Surprisingly, by 1941, there were enough people for an overseas war, which made your decision even more difficult, because if there were enough volunteers, why would Canada need conscription? I understand that other political parties were also pressuring you about bringing conscription into action. As the war progressed, troops' numbers were going down and conscription became inevitable. So thank you for your call. And that's all the time we have for today. Thank you so much, Mr. King, for coming in today. And tune in next week for another great interview. Good night.